Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of working on my wheat bin box turned junk journal. So here's where we're at right now. I've got the cover all the way done. The inside cover is getting there. I did put some tissue paper here, and I'll show you what these marks are all about in a minute and how to make your own. And then I've got a little bit of ink on the spine. I'm not too worried about what that looks like at the moment because we're going to cover up most of it as we go along. Looks like I got a little tear there, so we'll fix that later. What I'm going to do now is I decided I wanted to add some stenciling to the inside of this. So I've got this Tim Holtz stencil. Not sure I can see the numbers. Maybe you guys can on the video. I don't know. It's just some circles. So I've got some Distress ink and Candied Apple and some Distress Oxide ink in Mode 1. And I was just going to kind of randomly put some of these circles on this tissue paper. Let's see what this looks like. Now we can go about this a couple of ways. We can just rub it in here like this and see what it looks like. I think that's kind of fun. You can also spray this. This is just a piece of cloth that I have. You can spray this with some water and then use this here. Just go like this and we will wipe it on there. And that didn't really work so well because this is tissue paper. So no worries, we tried it, didn't like it, we'll wipe it away. I kind of like this though, so we'll keep going with some of that. And this we can just wipe away. We could actually press this onto some paper. That would have been neat. Okay, so let's just put some of this down. You can do as much or as little as you like. If you don't like this technique, you can skip it. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of green. We'll peel this off and put a different on. Alright, so add some green circles in here. I've got these envelopes I was thinking about adding to this journal, and I was thinking they were just too bright white, so maybe we just kind of press this down. It'll get some leftovers. Not really, it was already mostly dry. We'll try again here in just a second. Okay, so we'll do some of this green. That's kind of fun. Okay, maybe a little up here. Cute. All right, I like it. I'm happy with it. And we will move on. So when we were cutting the wheat bins box, I mentioned keeping the pieces because you can use them for other things. Well, it dawned on me later that when we cut the spine, this side off, it's exactly the same size as the other one. So it'd be a great template to make our holes for our signatures. I'm doing 3 signatures. And so the signatures, if you're unaware, are the paper that you put in for your pages. I'm not great at measuring, so I had this acrylic block, which is really awesome. So I just sat it where I wanted it. And I used a Sharpie. And I made my dots, 1, 2, 3, because I want 3 signatures. And then 1, 2, 3. A typical pamphlet stitch uses 3 holes to stitch in your signatures. So that's why it's 3 this way. But however many you want to do across is however many inserts you want to have. My spine is 2 1/4 inch, so a 3 fits in here pretty nicely. You want to make sure you leave room, especially if you're going to like put a lot of stuff in there, and so forth. So when I drew those dots, then I took a ruler and made lines this way and found the connecting points. Then I used a hole punch and just punched these out. This is the most difficult part. Once you get this done, it is smooth sailing and all creativity after that. So then I made sure to write what was the top, and I sat this on here, and I used my Sharpie and I just made some dots through the little holes. And here we are. So this shows me where to put the signatures. Now I'll save this because one, you can use it as another template, but I've discovered that if you score on these lines here and kind of make a fold, it also gives you a good template for getting the thread through your signatures. So I have the Crocodile 2, which is the big bite, so it has a pretty good reach on it, and I can just punch these holes. Some people don't punch the holes, they just use an awl and poke it through. I have difficulty seeing, so for me, having the holes as a guide is really helpful. And if I can punch them out first, it saves me a little trouble down the line. Like I said, this is one of the most difficult parts, just getting your signatures all into the book. Hi, Oscar. I really do have my crafting buddies. They think this craft room is their room. Most of the time it's okay till they take off with stuff. Little kleptos. Okay, so those holes look a little wonky. There is a guide on here I should be using, and it would help me make them straighter. Oops. There we go. This guide bar here would help me keep it straight. So if you're not familiar with this crocodile, it's designed so that you can cut across a 12 by 12 page for scrapbooking. But it works just like the regular crocodile, so it punches through all kinds of wonderful mediums. And it punches like a dream for cardboard, and it's just really great. Okay, so, oops. We have 2 more to do. Jump the gun a little bit. Okay, so the next thing to figure out is your papers that you want to put in your junk journal. And when you're choosing papers, you can use literally whatever you have. If you have junk mail or old ledger paper, receipt paper, whatever you want to use and whatever you have on hand. The nature of a true junk journal would be to recycle stuff that you would normally throw away, but also to use what you have on hand. So for me, I have a lot of scrapbook paper, and that's what I'm mostly going to use for this junk journal. So I have a total of 3 signatures. And these are what we're going to sew in here. 1, 2, 3. So to get these signatures, the front and back of my junk journal are 5 inches wide by 7 3/4 inches tall. So my scrapbook paper was 12 by 12. So I folded it in half. Like this. I just folded it in half, so it was actually 6 by 12, and then I cut off 4 1/2 inches so that this would fit, and then I cut off 1 inch from this side, so Actually made it 5 by what, 7 1/4 or something like that, 7 1/2. I'm kind of an eyeballer, guys, so I just do what makes it look right. Sometimes I do leave this edge a little bit longer. When you put them all together like this, you will have some buried edges, and you can cut them off with a trimmer, you can cut them off with scissors. I sometimes tend to leave them because if you have any decorative scissors or paper punches that you might like to use, this is one of my favorite ones, and you can paper punch down here. You can also fold some of your pages so that they're varying sizes. Like you can make a little flap like this so it folds in, just for different interest. In my signatures right now, I just have paper and a couple of doilies in here, but I will add, so scrapbook paper, this was single-sided, so every other page in here is going to be white, and I plan to add to the backgrounds here with like some vintage music sheets, and then I will probably collage on here as I add photos. So I'm gonna add some book page, vintage music sheets. You can add envelopes, paper bags like the treat sacks or cellophane bags, whatever you want to do. And you know, you could use wrapping paper, whatever scraps you have. You can use junk mail, and just keep going from there. So I think the next thing to do is sew in these signatures. So this is my book cover. These are my 3 signatures, and I have a whole bunch of scraps from where I cut these down because they were 6 by 12. So this might look a little overwhelming for some people because it is a lot of scraps. But the good thing is that I can also use it inside my pages as like a photo mat or whatever, because most of the insides of these pages are white. So we can ink them, add some paper. I do have some magazine things that I wanted to incorporate as well. And so normally I would put in some of these cool fun pages now and make sure that they get sewn in. But since I know that my signatures have all of this white space, I'm going to take advantage of that white space and use some of those other fun elements that I want to include in my journal. So I'm going to get all my supplies out and we'll be back to sew these in. Alright guys, I've got everything that we need to do our binding now. I did go ahead and crease along one of these lines to use as a template to insert the holes in the signatures. Some other key things that you'll need is some kind of twine or embroidery thread or whatever it is that you want to bind your book with. Some people use waxed coated thread or floss or whatever. You can use any color that you want. This one's from the Target dollar spot. You do want it to be a little bit strong because it's going to hold your pages into the book. And you can use whatever colors you want. I'm not really so worried about the colors because I'm going to cover it up probably with some fabric, and we'll get to that eventually. So we've got our template. We've got some twine. This is just baker's twine. And we've got our signatures. This is an awl, definitely a little stronger than your normal pokey tools. So, you know, you want to be careful not to jab yourself. Easier said than done when you're trying to poke this through. And then we've got a needle. I use a metal one, and it has a really large eye that holds the twine and is also easier for me to thread. Another thing that's really nice to have when you're doing these signatures is some clips to hold it in place so that things won't move. These are just from the dollar store. You can use binder clips, paper clips, whatever you have. And it's nice to have these because, especially if you have different sizes of things, things will move around. So the next thing I do, pay attention to where the top of your template is and where the top of your paper is. And we can clip this in. Use our poking tool And I punched the holes there. Make sure that's going to go right on the seam and poke right through. You want to make sure you poke it through enough so that your needle will fit through easily. Poke this through. And then this one. So it's coming out right here by my finger. So you want to make sure you know where it's going to go, which is nice to have the template. Then makes it a little easier. Okay, so I think I'm actually just going to use this green thread because, like I said, mine's not going to be seen. This is from the Target dollar spot, so sometimes you can find some good finds there for journals. There are some really creative junk journalers that do some cool things with their binding. They make some cool shapes. They use some beads. So there's definitely a lot of room for some creativity here. We're just going to go with a plain pamphlet stitch today because, like I said, most of the stitching on this one is going to be covered up with some fabric. So don't want to waste any fancy talents there. Okay, some people cut this off. They measure like 1, 2.5, or 3, and then they'll cut it off. I'm just going to leave it on, and we'll go ahead and get this stitched. Okay, so let's get these signatures into the book. I've done one, so you can see what it looks like. So we've got it all sewed in here. Super simple. I'm not a big sewer, so if I can do this, you can do this. And I've got the ties on the inside. You can do it where they wind up on the outside. It just depends on if you take the needle down or if you take the needle up. The way that we're going to do it, we're going to take the needle down. That leaves the ties on the inside. You can clip them close if you want to. You can leave them a little longer if you want to put some beads or some charms or whatever. If you're not sure how you want it, just leave it a little longer and you can decide as you work. So with this one, I use the template, poke the holes through. We'll take the template off. You don't want to sew the template into the book. I've almost done that before. It's pretty cute. All right, so we've got our needle threaded, ready to go. I like to start in the center, and that was what I was talking about. So our first stitch is going to go down. And if it gets a little difficult to pull through, where did my tool go? There it is. I use the edge of this and just kind of work its way through. There we go. So this can get a little wonky. Don't let it stress you out. Like I said, this is the most challenging part, but it's actually not that difficult. So once we've gone down through the holes, make sure it goes through the hole in the book too. You can either go to the top hole or the bottom, it doesn't matter, but now we're on the back side here and we're going to go through, and then we want to go through the holes in our signature. All right, see where we're at here. Okay, and you do want to pull it a little bit snug, but you don't need a ton of thread, depending on how much extra room you want down here. If you don't know, you can worry about it at the end here. Okay, so we went down here, then on the back side we went up. Now we're gonna go all the way to this side, so we're skipping that center, and we're gonna go down. So through the signature, make sure you're in the right holes in the center, so like the same line, and down through here. Press it in, pull this a little bit snug. I still have mine attached to the roll, that's why it's a little bit weird. You can, like I said, cut it out if you want to. That's totally fine. Okay, so for the last part, we're gonna go back through this center one, and we're through the book, and we wanna go back through the signature. Pull it through, and we want one thread on, so this is our middle line. We want one thread on either side, like this. So it should lay just like that, one string on either side. Now here's the part where you can decide how much you really need. I have a little bit extra, so I'm just going to pull it back through gently so that we don't tear anything. And we're going to tighten everything up here. The needle just slips right off the end because we didn't tie it or anything. Oops. And we're going to snip this off the roll. Okay, so we've got one string on either side of this middle string. We're going to pull it a little bit tight so we can make sure that it's in there good and snug. You don't want to pull it so tight that you rip the string. I've done that before. So we're just going to do a simple knot here. This is just a square knot, nothing fancy. Tie it like you would tie a knot in a shoelace. There we go. And like I said, you can snip these off here so that you don't have any of this hanging down. You can leave this hanging down for charms or beads or whatever you want to do, or just as a bookmark. Either way is nice. Okay, so there's our second signature. And now we'll do the last one. And we'll do it on camera so you guys can get one more time. This twine is a little bit annoying. It is all like wrapped super weird. So I'm having to kind of untangle it as I go, which is super weird because it's never been used before. So I don't know what they did. But I guess that's what you get for $1. Okay. See if we can get some more of this out. I guess I could have just cut it apart here. How annoying. All right, Target. I'm not appreciative of this baker's twine. Good grief. And we'll just get a little bit more out here and we'll probably have enough to do what we need to do. Okay, so last time, we're going to use our template again. You want to go to the middle of your signature. Make sure everything is still in there as you wanted it. Find the top of your template, put it in here. And sometimes I just like to make sure that it's matching up. And it is. So that would be a good spot. We'll go ahead and clip this so that we know everything is in there. You can clip the template on if you want to. I'm okay with just holding it. We'll use our awl. Go to these holes here. Make sure that they go to the spine. Watch your fingers and we'll poke it through. I saw this video the other day. This lady had made a book cradle, and it was just a genius idea because then it holds your book while you're doing this poking, and it doesn't poke your table or your fingers. So that was pretty cool. I may have to make one. Okay, there's the second hole. Last hole. All through there. I'm going quite a ways because that needle that I use is pretty big. Okay, set the awl aside, take off our template. We're going to keep our clips on because we want our signature to keep everything where we want it. Slip this through the needle. And then we're going to start in the center. Through the signature, through the center hole, the last one. Again, if it's difficult to push, you can use scissors or your tool, just kind of work it through. And then here, it didn't matter if you go to the top hole or to the bottom hole, but you want to go to one of them. And through the holes in the signature, pull all the way down to the end. Again, don't let these cords stress you out. It's a little awkward, no matter who you are. Okay, so we're gonna push this one through. So we went down the center, up through the top one, which you can do the top or the bottom, down through this one, and we're back here again. And we're gonna go through that center one again. And while this is still a little bit loose, you can kind of see your way through. And we're gonna pull. Okay, and we wanted one string on either side of this center cord. And we want to pull it snug. I'm gonna cut this off. Pull off your needle. One on either side of this center. Make sure it's nice and tight. And just a simple square knot like you would start of tying your shoes, unless if you do the bunny ears. Okay, there we go. You can take these clips out. And we've got all three signatures in the book. One other thing I wanted to mention, so this is what it looks like, and I love this look. One other thing I wanted to mention when you're making your template is if you plan to do any kind of charm or dangle from your spine, you want to make sure you leave enough room for that. And it looks like we have a lot of room here, but this is paper room. So when you look up here, you really don't have a lot of room, even at the bottom. But I like to squeeze in an eyelet kind of close to the edge anyways, because a lot of times the jump rings are small, or the charm clips, if you use those little lobster clips, they're really small. So the closer you can keep to the edge, the better. So I'll probably put an eyelet in there. And this paper kind of hangs over. We could have cut it before. Some of it though, I probably will do some folded pages. I forgot to also mention my signatures. I had 10 pieces of scrapbook paper and 2 doilies in these outside signatures, excuse me, and 7 pages with no doilies in this center one, because this is a lot thicker cardstock. So this was a little thinner, this was thicker, and it doesn't look like we have a lot right now, but as soon as we start adding pictures and extra paper and everything to these pages, it will be a lot. So 10 pieces of paper folded in half, that makes 20. And then another 20 in this one, and then 14 here because it was 7, so 14. So we have 54 pages to work with and tuck around and make some pockets and all kinds of fun stuff coming up. So that's how I sew in my signatures. And next we're going to work on the spine.